Hi, I'm Melissa from the Yarn Barn, and today let's talk a little bit about different kinds of shuttles. Now, a little while back, we did a kind of a deep dive into boat shuttles, and we'll link that video at the end of this one. But there are other types of shuttles, and some of them are better than boat shuttles at some things, and so I think it's good to kind of see what's available. But first, a review of the boat shuttle, because that is the most common one in weaving, I would say. So, boat shuttles are made to carry a bobbin. And so they have a spindle. You take the bobbin, put it on the spindle, and the yarn feeds out through a hole, typically in the side, but can also be from the end. I think most weavers would feel that this is the most efficient way to weave. Because you can put a lot of yarn on a bobbin, especially one as big as this, and it feeds out very smoothly, and that means fewer splices. So this is probably I would say, the number one choice when people go to grab something to carry their yarn, if they have it available. Boat shuttles come in different sizes. They come in different shapes. They might have an open bottom or a closed bottom, but they all work basically the same way. Now, when you go to get a boat shuttle, you do have to take into account that there is more to it than just the shuttle. So you do need to get bobbins, and you have to have some method for winding it. Now, there are people who wind their bobbins by hand. That is a very slow process, and to some degree maybe defeats the purpose of getting the yarn on so that it comes off very smoothly. The way to do that well is to get a bobbin winder. And so that's just an additional investment, but something that's useful for getting yarn onto the bobbins in a very uniform way so that it comes off that well. So when you're investing in a boat shuttle, there are these other things you have to get as well. Now, maybe a simpler method for carrying yarn is the flat shuttle. And that's something that if you are a rigid heddle weaver, you're probably very familiar with, because really this is the best way to carry weft for a rigid heddle loom, because a rigid heddle loom typically has a very small shed. And so something as big as a boat shuttle, it just can't fit through. And so that's when a flat shuttle is very useful. Now, the way you use a flat shuttle, though, there's no throwing it. You have to take it in one hand, put it through the shed, and grasp it in the other hand. You can't just kind of scoot it along. So that means you do have to suit the length of the flat shuttle to the width of your warp. And sometimes that means all you need is just a little guy. Sometimes you need something kind of middle-sized, and sometimes if you're weaving wide on a rigid heddle loom, you need a big guy. And the advantage of this certainly is that you can put a lot of yarn on this. The disadvantage is that when you're unwinding it as you're weaving, it's a little bit like drum majorette and waving a baton. So you just have to have plenty of room to do that. It's not necessary, though, to think of a flat shuttle as simply something you leave behind when you graduate to a boat shuttle, because this is a great tool for that time that you need just a little one shot of a color every now and again, and switching out the bobbins in a boat shuttle is kind of slow. So have this on hand, and then when it comes time for that one shot, pick up your flat shuttle, throw it, and it's easier than switching bobbins. This is also the most economically friendly option. You can get a lot of different kinds of flat shuttles for the cost of a boat shuttle. There is a subset of flat shuttles, and those are called belt shuttles. Those are called belt shuttles. And what makes them different is two things. They typically have a groove where you're putting the yarn, And this one is from Ashford. This one is from Schacht. Their shape is slightly different, but they both have the groove. And then they also both have a beveled edge. So you can use the edge of the shuttle to beat your weft down. And that's very handy for something like inkle weaving or card weaving, where you don't have a rigid heddle that you can bring forward and use as a beater. If you like the idea of beating with your flat shuttle, even if you're on a rigid heddle loom, you might check into the Leclerc flat shuttles, because they have not a crisp beveled edge, but it does have a bevel to it. So if you like to beat down with the flat shuttle, check out the Leclerc one. Now there's one more kind of thing that's like a flat shuttle, also kind of like a needle, and it's useful for getting that last little bit of length of your warp. So when you're weaving, you can't advance the warp anymore, and you want to get just like 1/2 more inch, you can tie weft to the eye and then feed it through the shed, and it just takes up so little space that you can get a few more picks if you carry the weft using this. Now the other extreme is if you're wanting to weave a rug. And there are two different options that are pretty popular for rug weaving. The first one is called a rag shuttle, and it's just kind of two flat pieces of wood connected by dowels. And when you are winding the weft on, you're doing this. And so you can see, you can get quite a bit of yarn on there. And the longer the shuttle, again, the more yarn you can put on. But again, the more awkward it is to unwind the weft. Now, this is the one from Schacht, very basic rag shuttle. This one is from Leclerc, and it's kind of a double duty. So if you're wanting to use it for rags, you take the pin out and you wrap it just like you do with the Schacht one. If you want to use it in a pinch for a boat shuttle, put a bobbin on it, and it's got a hole in the side that you can feed the weft out of. So this one can do double duty. In both cases, it's not limited to rag strips. Now, any heavy weft will work if you're doing mop cotton, if you're doing multiple strands of a yarn that has a lot of heft to it. These are great for that. Even if you were using just like the super bulky knitting yarn to weave a blanket, you would probably find this a better option than a boat shuttle, because you can only put so much on the bobbin on this boat shuttle. And this is a big boat shuttle, but you would be constantly having to refill the bobbin. So this would be a case where even if you're not doing a rug, this might be the better option for you. Then the last one that's common for rug weaving is called a ski shuttle. And it's made a little bit differently than a rug shuttle or rag shuttle, but still holds a lot of yarn. So the bottom of it is a smooth surface, and then the tips on the end curve up like a ski, which is how it gets its name. And then you wrap the weft this way. And so you can actually extend the weft beyond the edge of the ski, so you can get a lot of yarn on this. And this is from Schacht, this is from Leclerc, so they have different shapes at the edge, but they work the same way. And it really just comes down to preference on which one feels better in your hand. My favorite's the Schacht one, but I like the Leclerc one as well. There's shorter ones and longer ones. Again, the longer ones hold more, they're just a little bit more awkward to unwind. And I think that kind of represents the most common options for carrying weft and weaving. And hopefully there's something here that'll suit your next project.